Well, Harmy, it was a very good comeback from England. I don't know what we learnt really. There's some question marks. I get the impression that Will Jacks is not a very good starter, but my goodness me, I mean, we knew it already, but Harry Brook really just confirmed what a very, very special talent he is. And I mean, after Australia won 14 ODIs in a row, for England, that young experimental team in many ways, to go head to head and to come back and take the series into a decider was, I think, very satisfying, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. I thought it was going to be a good game at Bristol if the rain hadn't come. I think England were obviously slightly behind, but I still think like England's first innings, a quick bang bang of wickets, and all of a sudden I think it would have been definitely game on. What have we learned? Well, we've learned Ben Duckett's not only a very, very good red ball opening batter, he can do it in the white ball game as well. So that's a tick in the box. You're right. Harry Brook is probably going to be this once in a generation player like the Joe Roots, Ben Stokes, Josh Butlers before him, and Kevin Peterson, Alistair Cook, and all that before that. Yeah, I think this generation is going to have a lot talking about Harry Brook and hero status that he's going to have over the course of the next few years in his career. His captaincy, I thought he was very good as well. I thought his bowling changes were good. I think as a captain, you're only as good as the team and the bowlers you've got, and I thought they fought very, very hard for him. Liam Livingstone, we learned exactly what we didn't learn anything because he did exactly what he normally does. He gets a quick fire 30, he bangs a 50, he hits one out the ground, and has a couple of low scores. So I don't think we've learned a great deal from Liam, but I think he's had a better series than series in the past. So that's a good thing. Jacob Bethel is another good player that's come into the reckoning. Casters bowl quickly and bowl aggressively, which I was quite enjoyed. Potts at Lords was exceptional, and I think he's done what I expect of Matt Potts, to run in, give everything he's got for his team, whichever team he's playing for, and he's always there or thereabouts in the wicket-taking columns. So I think that's it, really. I think we've learned one or two things about people. We've learned same old from a couple, and I think from an England team point of view, I think there's a lot more positives than negatives, even though the series was a 3-2 defeat with very, very young, exciting players who are going to challenge to play ODI cricket and T20 cricket further down the line. So I think it was a positive series, if not played in ridiculous time of the year and temperatures, because, I mean, Durham was freezing. I mean, Bristol the other night, I mean, that really didn't look pleasant whatsoever. Standing in the field at fine leg or third man and getting one whacked at you in that temperature, I'm sorry. I mean, that's just not cricket. It really isn't.
Josh Buttler, does he just take Phil Salt's place when he comes back into the team? Salt made a devastating start in Bristol, but finished the series with just 96 runs at 19.2. Will Jacks, again, 135 runs in the 5 matches. Adil Rashid, well, that wonderful 36 to rescue England. 200 for 2 they were, and heading for 400. At one point, projected scores had 500 on the board if they were going at 14 and over. So yeah, it was a. Do you think they went too hard for too long?
Yeah, I think what we talked about last week, Manners, it's you described the one-day game perfectly. You have to have a position in the game where you not so much slow things down, but you earn the right to go again. And I think England possibly just kept going. It's happened before. It's somewhere like Trent Bridge. You just keep going because the wicket's so good, the ground's so small. But I think somewhere like Bristol or Chester Street, where it's a bigger outfield surface, there's a potential of you being able to hit one into the deep and not get quite over the line. So, yeah, I think the team hopefully will learn from that. Adil Rashid, he's a good player. I mean, he proved again, he is a talented player. The Josh Buttler, he comes back in because he's our best player. Where does he fit in? I'm not exactly sure, Manners. Not exactly sure. Does he go right at the top? I know, in 50 over cricket, he doesn't. I'm not sure he's as comfortable opening in 50 over cricket that he is in T20 cricket. I just wonder if Jacks feels more comfortable opening batting. And if it is Salt that mix, where then does Josh come in at number 3 or come in further down the line at number 4 or number 5, where I think he feels more comfortable in 50 over cricket as a finisher. So at this moment in time, it probably does look like Phil Salt will be the one that would miss out for Josh to come back in. And maybe the slow, quiet series that Will Jacks had, he might feel more comfortable going in first alongside Ben Duckett, and then somehow fit our best player, our leader, our captain, in a little bit further down the line at number 3 and number 4.
There's a lot of batters talking about how little 50 over cricket they play and how they got to get used to the pace. Phil Salt does seem to be really embodies the kind of batsman, or embodies the difference between 20 over and 50 over cricket. It's much more of a test. I mean, you've got to bat and not just hit. Salt faced 100 balls, and CricViz tells us that 43 of those 100 he played a false shot. So, that's not a criticism. It's just perhaps an observation that he really is the epitome of the difference between a 20 over specialist and a 50 over specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's possibly that was the final nail in the coffin of him not being in with a shout to be England's red ball keeper, where England wanted that dominant go at the opposition and counterpunch if it need batting with a tail. But I think you have to have some sort of technique to be able to stay with a top end batter. And I think in 50 over cricket, because you've got 2 white balls brand new from either end, the balls in the game that little bit longer when it comes to the movement stakes. I think you do have to have a more of a solid technique, and you do have to have a little bit of a defence, and then you earn the right to score your runs. And I think that's where possibly Phil Salt falls down a little bit, and is an unbelievable T20 player. But when it comes to 50 over cricket, you still have maybe 1, possibly 2 slips in play for the first 3 or 4 overs. Where in T20 cricket, I mean, it's just spread out and try and, pierce the gap. So I think that's something that Phil Salt might need a little bit of help with. I think I don't think it's a, hugely technical issue. I do think he plays away from his body a hell of a lot and leaves a massive gap between the sort of his bat and the stumps. But that's a good thing in T20 cricket, possibly not in 50 over cricket. And, a couple of conversations and a little bit of work with Marcus Trescothick, you might see a little bit of a tightening of the technique when it comes to the 50 over game further down the line. And that's just a learning curve for Phil Salt as well.
And finally, a word about Australia. I couldn't help laughing. It's making me laugh again now. Cooper Connolly made his debut on the 29th of September in about 8 degrees as a finger spinner. I'm not sure he could feel his fingers. But poor chap. Who amongst the new faces in Australia impressed you?
I like Aaron Hardy. I thought Aaron Hardy with a bat was, I think he hit, especially at Chester Street. He hit some big hits there, and I mean that's not a small ground; that's a big ground. And he was hitting them. He wasn't hitting them over the rope. He was hitting them in the stand, and that's a big hit. So I was impressed by some of the Australian players. Adam Zampa, did he fought back quite well, but he got a little bit of tap a couple of times, and it wasn't being very pleasant for a wrist spinner in the cold temperatures. Travis Head, I think a bit like Harry Brook, he is going to be one of Australia's best players for a few years to come now. So Head was somebody who impressed. Hazelwood bowled well. A good side, Australia. Keep producing players, keep finding players to come in, and I'm still yet to see who's going to replace Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins. From a bowling point of view, I'm still to be convinced that there's somebody there that's coming out. Sean Abbott, is he on all surfaces? I'm not so sure. But Travis Head is somebody who stood out massively, along with, for me, Aaron Hardy, who I was really, really impressed with.
And finally, has Adil Rashid reached that stage now where the opposition in team meetings just agree to the instruction, leave him alone? We'll score the runs elsewhere.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think the minute you try and take him on, nobody picks that googly, do it? And all of a sudden he gives you 2 or 3, a bit like Warner used to do. He used to give you balls that you could score off to just relax you a touch and then completely bamboozle you. Shane was more the big leg spinner that turned away in Test cricket. And Adils is the googly that when you think as though you're going nicely, you've just driven a few, you've maybe cut one, and all of a sudden that one spins back through the gate, misses everything, misses everything you've got, and hits the stumps, and you've fallen for his trap, hook, line and sinker. He is a wonderful talented cricketer, somebody who has been so good for English cricket, along with Mo and Ali, two of the most important diverse figures that I think we've had in sport, not just in English cricket. I think in English sport, I think Moen and Adil have been so important to the sport in this country, and hopefully we've got them for a few years longer, because I'm yet to see, talking about Hazelwood, Stark and Cummins, I'm yet to see whoever's going to replace Adil Rashid in this cricket team, because that is massive shoes to fill. He's a little lad, and there's not much of him, but they're massive shoes to fill.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason that I think one of the reasons Australia probably won the series is that they limited Adil to just 3 wickets in the 5 games. So I think that probably explains it. Okay, you're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll look ahead to the start of England's Test series in Pakistan and hear from England bowler Matt Potts. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And a reminder, you can now watch us on YouTube. Just head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and subscribe. Right, let's talk Test cricket. Ben Stokes is confirmed. He's back to captain England in those 3 Test matches, just 2 years after their clean sweep, winning 3-0 in 2022. Scans revealed that he was on track with his hamstring rehabilitation. Josh Hull will miss the series after picking up a quad injury. And Chris Woakes is still inspiring some conversation and debate, Harmy. I think he actually said himself a couple of years ago that he thought his overseas touring days in Test cricket were over, but he's back. Will he lead the attack, or is he going as backup, or what?
No, I think yes. While Ben's injured and Ben's playing as a batter, we're going back to the sort of the dodgy knee situation where we haven't got a balanced attack, but we need our captain so much that he has to play as a batter, probably in the first Test, possibly first 2 Test matches, and you might see him bowl later down the line. While Ben's playing as a batter, I think Chris Woakes is a must. That number 8 spot is huge, and I don't think we've got somebody to cover that quite yet. I think Bryden Carse for me would be the only choice in that role if you're going to go down a seamer's role. I'm not sure. He is a fine batter, and I don't think as in international quarters as good as Chris is, especially in the pressure situation where you're in the infancy of your career. Chris Woakes is very, very calm under pressure, especially out in the heat of what will be Pakistan. So I think Woakes goes at number 8. I think he does lead the attack. It's different when you're not bowling with Broad and Anderson overseas, especially if you're playing with a ball which, if you're playing with a Kookaburra, I'm not sure what ball they're playing with. I don't think it's a Kookaburra. I think it's something like the SG, not quite as durable as the Duke, but that would probably help Chris Woakes in Pakistan. And I think with him being the leader of attack and he gets the brand new ball, I think he'd be a lot more effective than he has been previous in his career. Now, looking at Chris Woakes during the summer and back into the summer, he looked as, I didn't think he was fully fit. There's something going on. There was a little niggle in there. I'm not sure what that is, and hopefully that has cleared up, because he needs to be at 100%, because this is probably last chance saloon overseas for Chris. So he needs to be fully fit, because if he's not doing himself any good. He's not doing the team any good. And then all of a sudden, especially not having any Ben Stokes, that really could derail England early in the Test series. But for me, if he's fit and he's firing and he's ready to go, Chris Woakes bats at number 8, because we haven't got the all-rounder in Ben Stokes, and we need that, possibly number 8, number 7s to if you're going to have to play a 5-man bowling attack.
One of the keys to winning 3-0 a couple of years ago was the speed at which England scored. So presumably that will be, 6 and over again will be the target. Buy yourself as much time as you possibly can if you need to give yourself 100 overs to bowl Pakistan out. So that won't come as a surprise. But do you think all three spinners will play in Multan, particularly Bashir, Rian Ahmed, and Jack Leach, and two seamers, Wokes and Potts?
Probably Wokes and possibly Potts. You might have to go for one of the quicker ones where the Cast comes into it, Stone comes into it, especially they might decide if they're going to have to play three spinners. They might play a lot of all rounders. They might have to make a big call in a way that they might make a big call and say no Ollie Pope. Everybody moves up one. We play one less batter to play the extra bowler. And that extra bowler, if you go down that route, then all of a sudden you've got Wokes at 7. Cast Potts 8, Rian Ahmed at 8, with that spin option, that second all-rounder spot, and then your two frontline spinners. So England might decide that we might need some help from our bowlers, or we might need some help with the bowling side of it, and have a lot more bowlers in the team and go the all-rounder route. And England might decide that one of their batters might have to be sacrificed to play a seaming all-rounder or a spinning all-rounder, especially in what will be the second game in Multan. They might not have to do it in the first game if they play on a wicket which has been left in the sun for 5 days and baked, and then you've got 3 days preparation time, and then it goes again because they're playing 2 back-to-back games in Multan. They might need that sort of second, third bowler, that third all-rounder, and that might be a seamer in the first game and spinner in the second game. So these, I'm sure, the conversations that will be had when they get out to Multan, but it'll be interesting to see how they go. I think if England go 2 spinners, they'll go with Jack and we'll go with Shaw Bashir. But then I think if they do that, they might have to have a look at the batting department from a seam bowler's point of view. And if you've got Wokes, they might have to go with Cast, who is another, more talented batter than say an Ollie Stone or a Matt Potts. I think they're the conversations will be had. They're the bowlers that'll be in the game. England will want pace at least at one end, and if they've got the 2 spinners as well. So I would imagine England will have at least a 4-man attack. And if they go down a 5-man attack, they might have to leave a batter out.
Okay, well, let's hear from Matt Potts now. He was talking about his ambitions to become a multi-surface bowler and particularly useful overseas.
It's something that I've looked at being not only useful in England, but also useful elsewhere. So there's been like a change, trying to increase my ball speed, try and be a bit more effective elsewhere. So I think taking positive steps towards trying to make myself useful everywhere.
Yeah, and how much has Jimmy helped with that?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, having so much experience on tap is very valuable, and being able to tap into that knowledge whenever you want, and he gives it freely, and it's an awesome experience to have so much knowledge in the dressing room.
That's Matt Potts, who does actually have ambitions to bat 8 himself. I mean, he fancies himself not as an all-rounder, but as a bowler who can bat more than adequately. I wanted to ask you about reverse swing, Harmy. It always amuses me when people say he's a particular, he's a reverse swing expert or she's a reverse swing expert. I mean, reverse swing's a team thing, isn't it? It's not. Yeah, I mean, you've got to have the right wrist and you've got to be able to bowl it. But I mean, the reverse swing is a team skill, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's not having somebody like Monty Panesar throwing the ball up in the air from the wet side of his hand and shouting from the deep, "Get off the ball!" Because he was like, and it's going in one ear and out the other. And it's like people shouting at Mon, "What are you doing?" I mean, getting a hold of the ball on the. I mean, Monty was he was like a sweat monster. He was somebody who, yeah, granted we were in 40 degrees, but even at Chester Street in Bristol in this last week, Monty would still be sweating. And he would throw the ball up, and you could see the just sort of the water just coming off his hands around the ball, and you're going, "Monty, get off that ball." So if you've got something like that, I think Collie was, I think Collie was the one that sort of did all the sort of looking up on it, and he was saying that the minute it gets wet, it takes about 4 or 5 overs to get back dry to the position you once had it for it to reverse swing. So it's so important that once it does reverse swing, the bloke that's shining the ball, he is the only person that touches it between that and the bowler, off the keeper to the shiner to the bowler. Nobody else touches it. You get it in a position to reverse swing. It goes naturally, so you have to have the natural elements of ball going along the floor and being thrown into the dirt, scuffed up like that. You can't get away with, like in the stories of Imran Khan and one or two others, from yesteryear when Wasim Akram, when there was no cameras on you and they were scratching down one side of the ball. Shoaib Akhtar made this ball turn. I mean, at Worcester, the dog had chewed it for most of the day and it did nothing at all. And then all of a sudden, within 3 overs, there was a little slide, sort of a little tear in it, and it was made naturally. It was being hit off for 4 off the concrete, and within 4 overs, Shoaib had this thing going around corners at ridiculous speed. So it does go naturally. You do have to look after it properly, and it's going to be so important in this 3-match series because it will reverse swing in Pakistan. Potts has just took 9 for with a kookaburra ball that didn't do a great deal. So it was all about skill level, using his angles on the crease. I watched some of their wickets, and that was pure skill from Matt Potts. So he'll be licking his lips and wanting to get out there. The thing about Matt Potts, right? He's not as quick as what the others are. He's not as fashionable, talked about as the others are. He'll never let you down, and he's always trying to make his game better. And that's the biggest attribute for Matt Potts. Every day he wants to get better. And that's what Jimmy Anderson did. That's what Stuart Broad did. So in the start of his career, being in the dressing room with Jimmy Anderson will be so important for him because that's how Jimmy got better. Because he's like a sieve of information going in. So Potts has to do that if he wants his career to keep going on the upward trajectory it's on. Fingers crossed, he'd be important if he gets the go ahead in Pakistan. But reverse swing is so important. You have to make sure you look after it as a team because it just takes one bit of doziness and you get that ball damp, and all of a sudden, you're 5 or 6 overs behind, and that over in that part of the world, that could be the difference of a batter getting in and getting set and being very, very difficult to be removed.
Just one more on reverse swing. Is it a team instruction? Does it come from the captain? Is it like flicking a switch? We go from we start the process now. We're giving up. There's no conventional swing, or is it born out of desperation? Or does it happen organically? Or if there's a little bit of damage on one side of the ball, is that the cue, the trigger to kick in Operation Reverse Swing?
The kick in Operation Reverse Swing stops a minute. It stops. You're right. Conventional swing. It's about everybody really. All of a sudden you see the ball go into the outfield and it'll be thrown into the wicket ends. That'll be a tactic. The umpire might give the signal to keep the ball up. You'll go, sorry, apologies. And I mean, it's the most sort of blatant non-apology that you'll ever get from a fielder. Oh, sorry, my arm's not there. So there's little things like that. Michael Vaughan would use someone like me in Operation Reverse Swing getting started, which would be we go bouncer mode, cross seam, make sure you hit the rough side. Because there's no way we've got Simon Jones, we've got Simon Jones and Andrew Flintoff. There's no point you even contemplating bowling with the reverse swinging ball because they're better than you at it. So you have to get in a position to get them, the skin in the game and be very, very, they're very, very good at it. Especially Old Trafford in England. I remember in 2005, Simon and Fred had this thing going around corners. And I think me and Hoggy bowled a hell of a long time. Hoggy just bowled cutters into the rough. Just run up and bowl just little cutters into the wide of off stump, into the foot marks and just bowled off cutters. And then I just run up and bowl cross seam halfway down the wicket with 3 men back and said, right, I'm going to bowl bouncers. And we did that for 10, 12 overs. And then all of a sudden, the message would come, see if you can pitch one up. You pitch one up and it just goes a little bit off the straight. Right, you two donkeys get off, get these 2 on, and then all of a sudden the game starts and let the fun begin. And that is normally how a team would try and tackle it. You've got 2 bowlers that can bowl reverse swing, and you've also got somebody who's probably not very good at it, and it's his job to get the ball to reverse swing as quick as he possibly can.
Right. Well, that series begins on a Monday, strangely enough. Hopefully we can watch it. There's still no TV rights deal done. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll continue to look ahead to the start of the Pakistan series and see how the hosts are preparing for the tour. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you've missed any of the show and you want to catch up, you can download the podcast from the following on feed, available via the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. And we are now joined live by Behram Qazi, cricket writer and broadcaster from Pakistan, to look at the series coming from a Pakistan point of view. First of all, Behram, Pakistan are in a woeful rut of form and just been belted by Bangladesh. I'm assuming hopes aren't particularly high ahead of the England series, or am I being unfair?
No, I think you're being quite fair over there. Also, morning to you, Manners and Harmy. First of all, it's an absolute privilege to be able to share the space with you. And it's been quite a rut. 10 winless tests for Pakistan at home. The last time they won a test match at home was versus South Africa in February of 2021. So it's been 3.5 years. And since then, they've basically drawn 2 tests and lost 1 to Australia. Then they got swept by England 3-0 at home, which was the first time ever they got swept in a home test series. Then they drew 0-0 versus New Zealand and most recently got swept 2-0 versus Bangladesh, again on home soil. And this is a team that had never lost a test match to Bangladesh, home or away. Now, the worst winless streak that Pakistan has ever incurred in Test cricket is 11 winless tests. That was between 1969 and 1975. And I mean, they are in more than a spot of bother. You could say that Pakistan cricket is perhaps at its lowest ebb. And this is a country that, even in cricket exile, remained very resilient. And that was kind of the brand of Pakistan cricket in recent times, I would say. That's what they were known for. And Misbah's team, even if they were number 1 in Test cricket for as long as it probably takes David Boone to chug a six-pack, they were still there, right? They were on top of the world for that brief, fleeting moment. And this is now a reality where Pakistan might be going towards irrelevancy in Test cricket. And that is a scary thought. Trust me when I say that the entire country and all the supporters are kind of feeling those same feelings as it stands.
And Behram, you look at, you talk about the brand of cricket. You brought in 2 different types of coaches for the red and white ball stuff. England 3-0 out there last time. You've just had a test match in Bangladesh with 4 all-pace attack. What we're going to see in Multan and the wickets that we're going to have, and where does the Pakistan team look right now? Because they've just lost with an all-pace attack. Do they go back to the spin?
So if you guys remember, the last time England toured Pakistan, they had a test match in Multan, which was probably, I feel, unarguably the most exciting test match of the series. And what happened back then is that Ramiz Raja, then chairman of the PCB, was facing a lot of criticism with respect to the surfaces. We all remember what Rawalpindi was like, and England smashed, 500 plus on the first day, which was incidentally my first ever day in a press box as well. So that's definitely memorable. But that Multan surface basically was unprepared, such that it was difficult to bat on at the start of the test match. And as that test progressed day by day, it got better to bat on. And Pakistan lost by 26 runs, chasing a 350-odd target in the 4th innings. And that chase looked on for the longest time. Right now, Pakistan do not know how to take wickets at home. That is the major pain point of these results, right? In the last 10 test matches at home in which they've gone winless, they've taken 128 wickets. Right? And this is Pakistan, a country with a rich fast bowling heritage. So it's really alien, for both the team and the fan base. So I feel that in Multan, we are going to see a surface that does take a bit of turn. But I also have this gut feeling that it'll be one of those situations where the surface just gets better to bat on as the game progresses. So the good part is that Pakistan does have both Shaheen and Naseem available for this test series, even though Shaheen is in dreadful form. So at least, you've got some experience back in that bowling attack, which was missing, at least in that second test versus Bangladesh and some of the other test matches in this barren run. So, I mean, Pakistan should be looking to get 20 wickets because you cannot win a test match without that. And I feel like skipper Shan Masood and coach Jason Gillespie need to be thinking a bit out of the box as far as the surface is concerned, because, we've seen this English team struggle versus spin in India. perhaps that's the best modus operandi versus them. And Multan might just be able to offer some conditions where you can get some turn and bite with respect to the tweakers. So that's what I'm expecting. Let's see what happens. You can never really say with the PCB, can you?
All-rounder Amar Jamal is back. He's got 18 wickets in his 3 test matches. Shadab Khan has said that he wants to play red ball cricket again. So a little word about the composition of the squad. And then after that, do tell me about Gary Kirsten, because he seems to be upsetting people left, right and centre in Pakistan and the PCB. It was really interesting. I mean, Shaheen Afridi said, I think just a couple of days ago, that Kirsten should shut up about workload management, because Kirsten said Shaheen's bowled more overs than any other fast bowler in the world in the last 18 months. The guy needs a rest, and it was a couple of days ago, Afridi said, no, rubbish. It's got nothing to do with that. Waqar and Wasim bowled thousands of overs in their prime.
Yeah, so I'll answer that last bit first. And Gary Kirsten, of course, I mean, it's a tough gig, isn't it? Pakistan's head coach. And I would have to applaud both Gary Kirsten and Jason Gillespie for taking that challenge on. But, he came on as head coach in the T20I series versus Ireland, and Pakistan lost a game. Then they lost in England, and then they got, knocked out in the first round in the T20 World Cup. And that was Pakistan's format. If you think about it, historically, Pakistan have been really good in T20 cricket. So it's been tough going for him. And I think he's right to identify workload management, because if you guys remember the Asia Cup last year, Pakistan fielded all 3 of Naseem Shah, Shaheen Shah Afridi and Haris Rauf versus Nepal, right? In a World Cup year. So you see all these countries across the globe, especially, the big 3, and now you're even seeing this with South Africa, that, they don't particularly care about fielding their best unit in games that don't matter. Pakistan is quite the opposite. They always field their first string team. And therefore, we see many times that, they run their fast bowlers to the ground. Now, in Pakistan, there are 2 distinct schools of thought. One is, of course, the Gary Kirsten school of thought. Workload management is essential. And I remember speaking to Sean Tate about this, who was the bowling coach of Pakistan, and he also agreed. He was like, we definitely need to do something about this. Poor guy didn't retain his job, which is also a very frequent occurrence in Pakistan, where every 5 minutes you either have a new chairman, or you have a new coach, or you have a new bowling coach. So it's all, business as usual on that front. But I suppose, with respect to the other school of thought, Wasim Akram has voiced this plenty of times, that workload management is, all fluff. And back in the day, he used to play all year round for Lancashire and play all games for Pakistan. And very recently, I had Rashid Latif, former Pakistan captain, on a podcast, and he echoed that same sentiment. So I'm not surprised that Shaheen thinks the same way, because there are other people within the fraternity who do have that opinion. But I simply disagree with it, especially with someone who has had troubles with injury, right? Shaheen has not been the same bowler ever since he injured his knee in that test match in Sri Lanka in July 2022. So I have some numbers here for you guys. Prior to that test match, he had taken 99 wickets in test cricket in 25 tests at 25 apiece, which are quite splendid numbers. You throw in that Australia series in which no one was able to get a wicket, and, his numbers look even better. Now, since then, Shaheen has only played 5 test matches, and he's averaging 41 runs per dismissal with the ball, which is simply not acceptable for someone who is supposed to be the leader of your attack. He hasn't been as quick as he used to. He's not getting that same lateral movement. And this is a guy who built a reputation, right, of striking with the new ball. First over wickets. That's what we associated with Shaheen Shah Afridi, that he'll pitch it up and someone will either edge it, or they'll get cleaned up, or he's going to wrap someone on the pads. Now, in that first test match versus Bangladesh, Shaheen Shah Afridi was wicketless for 27.5 overs. It took him till the 3rd new ball to get a breakthrough. Now, there could be multiple reasons behind this. I spoke to Azam Mahmood, who is assistant coach of Pakistan and has worked with Shaheen ever since he was pretty much an infant. And Azam said that it might be an issue, or he said it was an issue, with the way the ball was coming out of Shaheen's wrist. Other analysts and pundits in Pakistan have spoken of his front leg. We don't know what exactly the reason might be. I feel that they just didn't rehabilitate him properly post-injury. We all know how he was rushed back into the team for the T20 World Cup, the 2022 edition, that is. So, he's someone who's been hard done by the PCB recently. They awarded him captaincy, then there was a change of chairman, and then they kind of went behind his back and removed him. So I understand Shaheen's angst, but ultimately, you're a professional cricketer and you've got to pull up your socks. And if you're not performing for Pakistan, then it is not your birthright to play for the country, right? So that's where he stands right now. I do feel Pakistan will and should give him the first test match because you want to try out an attack with all three of Naseem, Shaheen and Abrar, who was really successful in Multan versus England in the previous series. But he's on thin ice. Another poor test match over here, and Mir Hamza is waiting in the wings, ready to replace him in the team as that new ball left arm seamer. So as far as, him shutting up Gary Kirsten is concerned, look, the team unity is in shambles. The PCB is in shambles. There was a connection camp held recently where this was addressed even. And it's not just the unity and trust deficit amongst the players. It's also between the board and the players, because you look at all these guys getting their NOCs cancelled, right? We started with Mohammad Haris in the BPL, then Osama Mir for, I believe it was the Vitality Blast. And he wasn't even playing any cricket. So it made no sense at all. And there have been multiple issues with NOCs. And there has been so much chopping and changing of selectors and coaches and even the chairman, right? Like I came back to Pakistan from Canada in November 2022 when Rambo was the chairman, Ramiz Raja. Since then, we've had like 3 more. And that is something that causes your entire institution to get so volatile that in that lack of stability, nothing can really happen. You can't build towards long-term success. You look for stopgap solutions and short-term success. But, in the long run, you're really hurting Pakistan cricket and no one seems to really care about it.
Another captain who might be feeling hard done by, is it so important that Babar Azam has a good series against England?
I mean, if you look at Babar's form, right, it's really, really worrying. He's gone 16 innings without a 50-plus score in Test cricket. And I mean, that's 8 Test matches, Harmy, right? That's not a small sample size. That's quite significant. And if you look at his Test career overall, he had a really poor start, right? Mickey Arthur backed him. So 2016-17, he wasn't particularly good. He was averaging in the 20s. And then he has this purple patch between 2018 and 2022. So that's roughly 5 years in which he is on top of the world. He is one of the best batters in that period. In the wobble ball era, the pace-playing pandemic, where no one can buy a run, Babar Azam is, unaffected. And he's scoring, big runs at his average of 50 plus. In fact, by the end of that purple patch, he nearly brings up his test average to 50. And, sure, he's scored the bulk of his runs and his tons, in familiar conditions in Pakistan and the UAE. But he more than held up abroad as well, right? Like he was averaging 50 plus in Australia and England as well, albeit that's a small sample size. So he was on top of the world till the end of 2022. And even the last time England toured, he was playing really well. But since the start of 2023, Babar Azam has experienced a catastrophic dip in form. He has never looked worse. And at least, at the start of this poor run, whenever he would be out there batting, even for those 25, 30, 40 runs, he would look good. But in recent times, if you watched him, particularly in that Bangladesh series, he has really struggled. Like Babar Azam chopping a ball onto the stumps, attempting a cover drive, doesn't sound right. Like playing away from his body and getting out really, in ugly manners. That's just something you don't associate with a player of his quality and caliber. And I'm not sure if you guys caught our analysis at Good Areas, but we kind of broke down and deconstructed Babar Azam's decline. And Jared looked at a lot of, images and, little clips from some, site or app called NV Play. And he noticed that Babar's stance has changed over the years. He was first, playing with a more open toe stance. So the toe was pointing, towards the covers. And that's why he was batting 2-eyed. And now his foot has been parallel to the crease. So it's pointing towards point. And he's batting 1-eyed and he's more closed off. And that's why his balance is off. Babar Azam's balance is what made him special. And if that's not working, then something is definitely wrong. But, I'm pleased to say that ever since we, wrote that piece and that video came out, I've seen his knocks in the Champions Cup, the local domestic one-day cup that was ongoing. And he seems to have made that adjustment. Now, I don't know if someone told him, he watched it, or what happened over there. But based on all the images that I've seen, that's something that he's rectified. Albeit, it's too soon to get excited. He's got a big series coming up. The pressure is on him and he needs to score in this England series. So here's to hoping, the toe adjustment helps him because Pakistan need his runs. They may not need his captaincy, Harmy, but they need his runs desperately.
Qazi, you haven't pulled any punches. So, so just to finish off, And just for fun, give us a score prediction and why.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that we'll get sporting surfaces because Pakistan would be, or the PCB would be smart not to go to those roads and highways that we've seen in the past, right? I feel like Pakistan will be better in this series because they've really gotten their backs against the wall, right? And this is a team that historically, you know, galvanizes itself when it finds itself in these positions. But that's been an alien concept for a bit now. Couple of years, we haven't really seen Pakistan do that ever since the 2022 T20 World Cup. And, you know, there are other players who aren't doing well. Like Abdullah Shafiq can't buy a run these days. Saim Ayub is young and exciting. He's exuberant and, you know, scores attractive runs, but has a penchant of throwing his wicket away. But you've got some good batters in there. Saud Shakil is a fantastic player of spin. Maybe not so much against pace, but versus spin, he is elite. But Mohammad Rizwan is Pakistan's man in crisis. He's a superhero when it comes to those situations. And Salman Ali Agha has done really, really well in the test team. So I feel that Pakistan may not win this series, but I'm going to give them a chance at winning a test match over here. So I'm going to go 2-1 England. I feel like we'll get a result in every single test match because that's the Bazball way. But there are two areas where Pakistan can really capitalize over hair manners. And that is England's inexperienced bowling attack, particularly the seamers, right? Now, we've all been impressed with Gus Atkinson in England, but, you know, can he do it on the flatter tracks of Pakistan? And then when you look at the spin bowling, you know, trio, you've got Leach, who is the most experienced bowler in this attack. And then Bash and Rehan are interesting. We'd have no idea how Bash will fare. And Rehan took a fifer on debut in Pakistan last time he played, right? So it's exciting. I feel that Pakistan can definitely capitalize on England's bowling. But then again, you know, if they fail to take 20 wickets, this is all a futile exercise. And the only way they can, you know, somehow pose a challenge is if they are threatening with the ball and incisive. So yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 England. And hopefully, you know, that one win, if it comes for Pakistan, it, you know, ushers in a new era of, I don't even know at this point, because it is really heartbreaking to see how much this, you know, very proud cricketing nation and cricket mad nation when it comes to the supporters has fallen. You know, they're probably the least, what would you say, effective team in Asia across all formats at this time. You'd probably take Afghanistan over them in limited overs cricket as well. So tough times, but, you know, they say that every cloud has a silver lining or it's always darkest before dawn. Pakistan will be hoping that that's the case for them. And yeah, I would give them a test match. But again, if it's a 3-0 sweep for England, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Behram, it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to having you back on at some point during the series or maybe afterwards to discuss your prediction. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, cheers.
That's cricket writer and broadcaster Behram Qazi. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Durham Hall of Famer Steve Harmison. And next up in part 4, we'll be joined by England batter Alice Capsey as she looks ahead to the start of the Women's T20 World Cup. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former #1 bowler in the world, Steve Harmison. And you can now watch us on YouTube. If you're not doing that already, just head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and subscribe. Okay, let's hear now from England cricketer and Red Bull athlete Alice Capsey ahead of the start of the Women's T20 World Cup this week. She's been speaking with our very own producer, Scott Taylor, about the preparation and her hopes for the tournament and her work with Red Bull and her career to date.
So delighted to say, joined by England cricketer and Red Bull athlete Alice Capsey. Alice, you're in Dubai. How are you settling in? The T20 World Cup starts next week. So yeah, just how are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Yeah, like you said, just got to Dubai. We've been in Abu Dhabi for the last 10 days on a bit of a preparation camp. So yeah, it's really exciting to now be here in Dubai, and it's all starting to feel like it's getting pretty close now.
And I guess that benefits you where you've had that training camp, as you say, but now the tournament's hosted in Abu Dhabi and Dubai compared to Bangladesh. So how much of that helps you?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, when it was in Bangladesh, we already planned this 10-day training camp in Abu Dhabi. So I guess we kind of lucked out with getting an extra 10 days in the country to learn conditions and things like that. So no, we're in a really good spot, and I think as a team, we're just really looking forward to getting going into the competition now.
And how are you personally? You've not played since the 100, of course, had a good few weeks off cricket, refreshed and recharged, ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, with such a kind of crazy summer that we've had, but then also coming into this winter, we've got some really major things and exciting things this winter. So I think we all kind of jump to the opportunity to have a couple of weeks off and recharge and get away from the game. And we're all pretty buzzing to be back together as a group, and spirits are pretty high, and there's a lot of energy around the camp at the moment.
And you're talking to us today on behalf of Red Bull. Just talk to us about you, really, your rise. You've been well known since, what, 3 years ago? You burst onto the scene for the 100. You've played Ashes, T20 World Cup, played for England, played in franchises. What's it like being Alice Capsey at the moment?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I have to admit. Yeah, from kind of that 16-year-old who was very introverted to now playing around the world and being very lucky to be a part of all of these competitions, but also to, I guess, have the support of brands like Red Bull. Yeah, I feel pretty fortunate, and I feel like I've got a really good kind of network, which is just allowing me to go onto the pitch and just not have to worry about anything else that's going on around me. So no, I'm very lucky, and like you said, it's been kind of 3 or 4 years of first, which is amazing, and kind of it's still kind of pinch me moments. But yeah, it's pretty exciting, and there's definitely worse things to do when your job is to play cricket, travel the world, meet people, go to different countries, and yeah, like you said, to be able to be a part of the Red Bull family over the last kind of, I think it's now about a year, 18 months, it is pretty special. So no, I'm loving life.
And how have you dealt with sort of that newfound fame, I guess? Because when you're growing up, you just get taught how to play cricket and all the wheres and wherefores about cricket, but not how to deal with the spotlight and that sort of stuff. So how have you felt going from, as you say, that 16-year-old girl that just wanted to play cricket to all the extra added things that an international cricketer comes with?
Yeah, it's been a shock to the system, that's for sure. It was a bit of baptism of fire, I think, during that first year of the 100. I'd gone from never doing an interview before to, after that 50 at Lords, having to do 10 that evening, and I was like, oh my god, what am I doing here? So no, it's been a baptism of fire, that's for sure, but it's been really enjoyable. I think it's definitely challenged me at times. I'm kind of someone who likes to go under the radar, just get what I need to do done, and like you said, I was just learning to play cricket, and I was just enjoying being on the pitch. So to now have kind of people watching me and taking such a interest in my career, I guess, has been a bit of a something that I've had to get used to, and kind of being in the spotlight a little bit more. You're obviously going to get people talking about you, writing about you, which has been a challenge in itself, just to get used to that, I think. And I'm feeling in a great place now, kind of going into this winter and the exciting 2025. So no, I've definitely rode the ebbs and flows of kind of, I guess, rising into limelight a little bit, but I'm one of 5. I'm the youngest. I've got a big family, so every time I go home, I'm just that kind of youngster, that annoying little sister. And yeah, the support that I've had from my family is been amazing. So no, I've stayed pretty humbled, that's for sure, through my family and friends.
And does it help you? You say being the youngest there, you have an older family, and with being an international cricketer, and especially the growth of the women's game, there is a few times you might get criticised for your performances where nothing can prepare you for, as you say, seeing people say stuff about you, write stuff about you. So has that kept you on a sort of straight and narrow, really, that you can lean on your older siblings and perhaps teammates?
Yeah, 100%. They've been incredible for me throughout my career, just supporting me no matter the result and no matter what happens. They're there for the good and the bad, like most families are. And yeah, I mean, every time I kind of go onto the pitch, I know exactly how much hard work they've also put into me behind the scenes, whether it be mum and dad driving me to training and things like that, or just being there for me through hard times, whether it be injuries or kind of low patches in performance. But yeah, like you said, also your teammates are really important. And I think that's kind of the really safe environment that we're starting to create here at England, is just that you kind of get the feeling that we're focusing on ourselves and we're not listening too much to the outside noise. And yeah, for someone who probably kind of had that transition phase in 2023 where I did find it a little bit tricky. They were amazing. They supported me throughout, and every time I go onto the pitch, I've got their complete backing. So I guess that transition of reading it to now, I don't read anything really. And yeah, the only opinions that kind of truly matter to me are the ones with my friends and family and teammates. So keeping it quite a closed circle.
And also, you talk earlier about a pinch me moment. What's it like when you get into the England team? You're playing with the likes of Nat Sciver-Brunt. You probably would have watched Nat growing up, and now you're sharing a dressing room with her. That must be pretty surreal for you, right?
Oh, 100%. I remember kind of making my debut and looking around in the circle and thinking, oh my God, it was only 5 years ago because it was actually on the day. It was 5 years ago that they were winning the 2017 World Cup at Lords, and I was sat in the crowd. So it was a really nice full circle moment, but we've seen how incredible Nat Sciver-Brunt is, and just the way that she is just so consistent. She's the best in the world, and yeah, I mean, every time I go onto the pitch, it's like, oh my God, I'm on the same team as one of the greatest kind of English cricketers we've produced. So no, it's definitely a pinch me moment, and just also she's just so kind of open to teaching and learning and kind of having those sort of really useful conversations. And for me as a youngster, kind of having her as a bit of someone to lean on and to look up to, it's great.
And just a couple more. You say you're in Dubai now, ready for the T20 World Cup. England obviously have a lot of players nowadays that play in franchise tournaments. You yourself have played in the WPL, WBBL, etc. How much has that helped sort of England, I guess, in their chances heading into this tournament?
Yeah, look, I think when it comes to T20 cricket in general, it's just one of those fickle formats that anything can happen on the day. It's whoever plays better on the day. And especially when you then come into adding into the mix the World Cup, anything could happen in these sort of competitions. But like you said, there's a number of us who have now played alongside many of the different players that we're going to come up against, whether it be in the WBBL or WPL. So I guess there's now nowhere to hide within international cricket, which is pretty exciting. I think it's just raising the standard. And yeah, I think you obviously have the likes of Australia who have dominated women's cricket for so long. And we've been kind of having to play a little bit of catch up and striving to compete and play our best cricket. And I think that's what we're going to try and do this tournament as well. We're just going to be focusing on ourselves and trying to get the best out of ourselves, and hopefully that leads to results and being there and thereabouts at the end of the tournament, coming up against the best teams in the world.
Yeah, you talk about bursting onto the scene 3 years ago as well. People forget you're only 20 as well. So a lot of people seem to, as I say, forget that. What's the future hold for you? I saw you sort of helping Lauren Winfield-Hill with the sort of captaincy at the Oval Invincibles. Is that something that interests you, or are you sort of, I'm a 20-year-old, I just want to enjoy my cricket for now, I'll deal with the extra responsibility in a few years' time?
Yeah, look, like you said, I'm only 20, still young, still the forefront of my mind is enjoying it and taking all the opportunities I can, and I guess learning as much as I can in all of the different environments that I'm put into. But it's something I really enjoyed, taking on that extra responsibility within the Oval Invincibles and working with Loz. She was great at kind of being really open and having conversations with me, and she taught me so much during that short period of time. And it's definitely something that I've really enjoyed and something that I want to do in the future, maybe, whatever opportunities I get. But like you said, at the moment, it is very much kind of just trying to improve my game, win as many matches as I can for whoever I'm playing for, and just enjoying it and seeing where the game takes me, I guess.
And just finally, you are a Red Bull athlete, of course. We're here speaking on behalf of Red Bull. Just tell us a bit about what you're going to do throughout the T20 World Cup on your Instagram page.
Yeah, obviously kind of delighted to be in partnership with Red Bull, just to have their backing and support throughout kind of the T20 World Cup. It is crucial, and I think it gives me just so much confidence going into it. Obviously there'll be certain bits of content coming out around the World Cup, and I mean, every single night game I have a Red Bull anyway, so Red Bull won't just be on my social media. It'll be something that I'll be drinking a lot probably throughout the tournament just to keep me awake for these evening games. So no, obviously delighted to kind of have their support, and yeah, just really looking forward to kind of both myself and Red Bull, the brand, kind of hopefully engaging more people and kind of getting more people the exposure of cricket and getting them into the game, I guess.
Okay, well, we'll be keeping obviously a very close eye on the Women's T20 World Cup. Okay, other bits of news that have caught my eye and Harmy's eye before we move on to the final word. A quick word from you, Harmy, on the contrasting fortunes of the red and white rose. Yorkshire, I thought it was absolutely brilliant against Northampton, and a very Yorkshire attitude. I thought the moment they had secured promotion in second place behind Sussex, they went on against Northampton in the final round of county championship matches to make 726 for 7. They just needed the draw. Let's just make sure, lads. Let's just make sure.
Yeah, just make sure, and yeah, what a performance to get them over the line. They do deserve to be back. There's two parts of this. When obviously all the controversy happened around the Azam Rafiq and the racism stuff, Darren Gough went in with Lord Patel. There was that part of the club which was talked about in such a negative way, and Yorkshire County Cricket Club was, thrown into the world spotlight, never mind just in domestic point of view. But the ones that were so important in that situation were the players, because quite a lot of the players didn't have any connection to that. They weren't the ones who were brought into the racism stuff. They were the players who came after, but they still had all this cloud over them, all this negativity. So for them to go and perform the way they have, they were a young group then. Stephen Patterson was involved at the time. He's not there anymore. They were a very, very young group who have stuck together and gone on and getting themselves promoted back into the big league. And fair play, congratulations, Otis Gibson, who's going out as coach, Darren Gough, who left at the start of the summer. But I think that group there has stuck together. A lot of them young players have really, really impressed this year. George Hill, Matt Reeves, two really good, promising young talents. Matt Fisher's played a few games. Ben Code stayed fit for quite a lot of it. James Walton, another one who's talented, who was only, I think he was only sort of 21, 22 when I was in there. And you could see all these young players are going to mature together, but that all had that negativity above their head of obviously a club in turmoil with the racism stuff. They've stuck together, got themselves promoted. So, fair play to them. They've been exceptional this season.
Okay, two other bits of news. One serious, one less so. I've got a question for you, right? This is concerning the retirement of Dwayne Bravo, who's called it a day in all forms of cricket. Amongst many records, he's the leading wicket taker in T20 cricket of all time. What fascinates me is he also has more T20 titles, 17 of them, 17 wins in T20 finals, which is not surprising because he plays in 17 tournaments for 17 years. And so, there's a lot of opportunity to win titles, but 17 nonetheless. In second place, Kieran Pollard, 16. Same thing, Bangladesh, Caribbean Premier League, Big Bash, all sorts. In third place, Shoaib Malik with 15, similarly plays all over the world. Now, my question is, in fourth place, Sunil Narayan, again, all over the place. He's 11. But Rohit Sharma, 11. Now then, I've done my maths. 5 IPL titles, 2 World Cups. That's 7. What were the other 4? Because he only plays in the IPL and for India. So what were the other 4?
I'm not so sure. What would it be then? Unless there were, I don't know, they'll not be Ranji Trophy type things, will it? It'll not be domestic.
Well, I think there could be, yeah, because they have Karnataka Premier League, Uttar Pradesh Premier League, that kind of thing. It must be domestic.
Vitality Blast. Yeah. It must be domestic, like Vitality Blast. But I'll say, as somebody who doesn't play outside India, it just shows you what an unbelievable player Rohit Sharma is when it comes to, you get him to a final and he win it for you, because the majority of them titles, he played a huge part in the final, especially in the World Cups that England that India have won. So yeah, I mean, Dwayne Bravo was an unbelievable player. He's probably the start of the sort of that slower ball generation that bowled at the death, back of the hand stuff. He was somebody who is well battered. I mean, he was a competent batter as well. I played against him in 2004 when he played Test cricket, and he's turned himself into one of the best, multi-format players, but one of the best shortest format players that you'll have. And again, another infectious character, somebody who in the dressing room was, I'm not sure. I think I could put up with him in a T20 dressing room. I'm not sure I could have put up with him during a Test match dressing room. I've just been on a golfing trip with footballers versus cricketers and spent a lot of time with Graham Swan. And a lot of the lads are, I love Swanee, he's great. And I was like, yeah, but if you win the toss and bat first on an absolute flat one, I could have him for 6.5 hours. I mean, not great then. So, I mean, like Swanee, I think I could put up with Dwayne Bravo in a T20 dressing room when you're there for about 45 minutes, but that would be it. But what a career, what a character. I've seen him dancing on stage in one of the clips at the end of these last, his 17th title. I think he was dancing with Kieran Pollard on stage. That the dinner suits on at some function, that title party that they had just won. But a stellar career, and somebody I think who's been quite infectious in most dressing rooms he's been in. And he's a larger than life character who, again, can walk in a dressing room, light up the dressing room, and then go on the field and perform and win trophies. So good on him for that.
Okay, one final story before we move on to the final word. Hampshire have been taken over by the Delhi Capitals, or to be more accurate, Hampshire Sport and Leisure Holdings have been bought by the GMR Group, which are the owners of the Delhi Capitals. This will be fun. Me and you doing a finance story. I don't know what it means. I was finding that my eyebrows were being raised by a comment in the press release from Rod Bransgrove, in which he said that it was the fulfillment of a dream. I mean, it's hot off the press. It's sort of breaking news as we record. I don't know whether you've got any thoughts about that. Or maybe we're just sort of inherently nervous or suspicious about takeovers of sporting clubs. But yeah, I mean, Hampshire they've bitten the bullet and they've taken the cash.
Yeah, they've taken the cash, and eventually, thank God, just somebody get it started. I mean, it's coming. So let's get going. We just talked about Yorkshire. I'm sure Yorkshire members I'm sure Colin Graves is desperate to get a vote across the line to then try and get Yorkshire the next one. And I'm sure Durham will be very, very much sought after by one or two other, whether it be IPL, the PFI, the Saudi Arabians are massive in this in the northeast of England. Whether they get into the game, I hope so. Because now it's started, let's let the fun begin and let's see where we get to, because we needed to start somewhere. Rob Bransgrove has been brilliant, I think, for English cricket. What he built down at the Rose Bowl, the Ageas Bowl, and now being the first person to basically put his head above the parapet and say, right, we need injections of cash into this country. We need it into cricket, and this is how we're going to get it, and I'm going to do it first. I think he is going to steer. I think he's going to stay on as chair till 2026. I read in the press release to try and interact and integrate the whole marriage between Hampshire and the GMR Group. So that's a good thing. But like you said, Manners, it is just hot off the press. We don't know the full ins and outs of it, but I'm just thankful for it getting started, because we've been talking about sale of the 100. This is the best thing for English cricket. All counties are broke. The game's bankrupt. We need to get rid of counties. Well, now we've started something where I think hopefully fast forward, we'll be going quickly into the game being run properly and securely for the foreseeable future. And I think that is probably my initial take of where this first injection of cash is going.
Okay, it's time for the final word, and I'll go first, Harmy. I don't know which one you're going to go with, but for me, I've been fascinated by the Zim Afro T10 tournament taking place in Harare. In fact, the Joburg Bangla Tigers just beat the Cape Town Samp Army. And I'm fascinated, talking of finance stories, about how this works, how it makes money. But my final word, amongst the players, the big name players, David Warner was the headline act, Jimmy Neesham, Carlos Brathwaite, a number of Englishmen as well, David Willey, David Milan, Will Smead, Adam Rossington, Luke Wood. I guess these guys don't come cheap. Two of the coaches, Oais Shah and James Foster. So, and they're Afghan players and it's a lot of big names up there and a couple of sort of smaller names. One of whom, Scotland's very own George Munsey, scored 100. So I just love that, no doubt he was paid probably quite a lot less than those big names that I just read out. And he scored 100. George Munsey, 36 ball 100 in a T10 league about which I know almost nothing. I find it truly extraordinary. It does make me laugh that Oais Shah got himself a gig though as coach. How much coaching do you do in a T10 league? Anyway, George Munsey is my final word.
hit it as hard as you can and enjoy yourself. That's it. See you later. Quick meeting, good meeting. Get on with it, boys. Yeah, good. George Munsey's fee might go a little bit higher, hopefully, for George not only in the next Zim Afro T10 league, but in the ones that are coming up, because I'm sure there'll be loads of them between now and the start of next summer when he starts playing again back in Scotland. Mine's 23-year-old James Walton. I remember when I went into Yorkshire for that sort of 3-month period. He was a little jack. Well, he was a big jack in the box because he used to be 6'4", 6'5". Lovely, lovely lad. And he'd been about 19, 20 at the time. A lot of moving parts, but all he wanted to do was hit the ball hard. Flew mid-wicket, Caribbean style, off the bowler machine. He was always trying new things. He was always wanting to, he was a bundle of energy. He was a great young kid, and he got 285 off just 319 balls to secure Yorkshire a place in the first division next year. So my final word is, it's took him a while, I think, to get himself propelled into conversations of being a first-class cricketer for Yorkshire for a day in, day out. Every single team picked I'm in it, secure his place in the team. But he's just gone a long way to doing that for next year against the first division bowlers. So my final word is to James. I'm really, really pleased. I've watched his career go through the likes of Matt Rivers and George Hill. And so to get the big score on the big day when your team got promoted, my final word is well done to James Walton.
With a honourable mention to the Adair brothers, former rugby player Ross scored 100 against South Africa to record their first, or to help record their first ever T20 victory over South Africa. And brother Mark took 4 for 31. That's the show then for this week. You've been listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And we'll be back at a similar time next week, where we'll be joined, hopefully, by Pakistan head coach Jason Gillespie ahead of the Test series against England. But for now, you've been listening to another edition of Following On.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.